So everybody keeps saying that the Detroit Pistons need shooting, that they don't have shooting. And they point to the inefficiency, the lack of spacing that they saw last season, a lot of missed wide open looks. And they, to some extent, have a point to say they need to improve their shooting as a team. But here are some of the misconceptions that I want to get to in this video is that this Detroit Pistons team and this roster is not about not having guys that can shoot and make threes. It's that how they've generated threes has been inefficient, ineffective, and highly inconsistent. I want to start with the aspect that this team has shooters. They have more than proficient shooters on this team. The first one that I want to point to is probably the most unsuspecting individual being a good three-point shooter on this team, and that's Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart shot 38% from three on about 4 attempts a game. 38%. But when I watched the games, I never got the sense. And once again, I watched almost literally every single Detroit Pistons game because I wanted to be intentional about following the progression of this developing team and their developmental system. All that's to say is that when I watch Isaiah Stewart, there's many times where he'll knock down a three from his main spots, which are that left wing and the top of the key, but then he'll pass up wide open looks in the very next possession. And what it told me is that he does not have a defined role where he understands where his shots are supposed to be coming from. If you're shooting 38% from three and you're left wide open in a spot where you hit a highly efficient three-point shot from, you should be taking that shot every time. You should not be worried about, okay, let me try to get other guys involved. You're open. That's your shot. And a good offense is about taking the first really good shot, which is an open shot, rather than going further into a shot clock trying to get another shot that you're hoping will be just as good. All that's to say is Isaiah Stewart is a pretty damn good shooter at 38%. The next one is Jaden Ivey. He probably had the worst three-point shooting of his early career of the group of individuals that I'm going to talk about. He shot about 34% the past 2 seasons, 34% as a rookie, 33.6% in his sophomore season. But once again, he dealt with a lack of knowing where his shots were going to come from and what his shot package was going to be. And if you follow my channel, one of the things that I said needed to happen, which gratefully Monty Williams did, was that he created a shot package for Jaden Ivey to simplify his reads, to reduce the amount of processing that he needed to do from possession to possession to be able to figure out what he's going to do. Is he going to distribute? Is he going to play make? Is he going to take a shot? Is he going to try to create his own shot, get to the rim? Right? He made it real simple. Catch and shoot, attack, closeouts. From there, if you have a floater or a layup, take it. If you don't, you're kicking to the opposite corner. Real simple. He reduced his half-court offensive shot package to something that could be simplified so that he can make more effective reads. And we saw a big difference in that. Unfortunately, by the time that he started operating within that shot package, Cade Cunningham went down again. And all of a sudden, he was put into a starting role where he had to be the priority option and make more reads. And he had more defensive focus on him. And I'm going to get to that later. The next person is, of course, Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham, look, he was a 35% three-point shooter last year. That's league average. Now, when you look at a lot of his shots, he never looks like he's taking shots outside of his wheelhouse, outside of his skill set. He always looks like those are shots that he should be taking. And the thing is, I think he's something like a Luka Doncic in terms of he draws so much defensive attention and he does so much playmaking that a lot of his shots that are being created are actually shots that are of higher difficulty. Whereas if he had someone creating for him, he would have a far higher a percentage and level of shot making than I think we've already seen. But his capability is extremely high. His shooting stroke is smooth, it's fluid. He knocks it down with regularity, and when he gets hot, it's like watch out. Now all of a sudden he's hitting threes from 3, 4, 5 feet behind the three-point line. As soon as you go under that screen, he's hitting it. Whether you're coming around the top, he can still hit that three, pull up off the dribble, which is one of the harder shots to do in the NBA, and he's already got that down pat. The next individuals that I want to point out are Simone Fontecchio is the obvious. He is the dead-eye sniper. He kind of came in and took that Bojan Bogdanovic type of a role where at 6'8", 6'9", he's able to play both forward positions. A very athletic, agile, can get out in transition, which all these guys can do. But it's to say that his ability to knock down those threes was a real threat, probably the only real threat they had the second half of the season that was consistent. If he was on the floor, the defense completely had to make sure that they stuck with him, which really opened things up for Cade and Ivy. The next person is Quentin Grimes. He was a 37% three-point shooter until getting injured and coming from New York, from the Knicks to the Detroit Pistons. And then he shot a really abysmal shooting percentage, but that was less indicative of his ability because throughout his whole career before then, he was shooting over 37, 38%. So what we understand is that that was kind of the anomaly. That was the exception to the norm what he did in Detroit. But more than likely, he comes in next season, especially playing next to the person I'm going to talk about next, Marcus Sasser, who was his old teammate in Houston. We all see what it does for the Knicks to be able to play with your old college teammates again, right? Especially if you've been able to win at a high level. You got Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. They look amazing together. Don't be shocked if they go out and get Sadiq Bey, right? Don't be shocked at all. But it's to say that when you have somebody that you're familiar with, that you have a continuity and a brotherhood with, it's a lot easier to play alongside of them because there's just that good energy of trust and reliability and understanding each other's habits. So I think he's going to jump back up to that 37, 38% that he shot in New York with the Knicks. I think he's going to do that next year. And then last guy is Marcus Sasser. As a rookie, he was shooting 37% from three. So once again, this is driving home the point that it's not about they need to bring in shooters. They have shooters. They have above average shooters, plenty, as a matter of fact. But the next part I want to talk about is that they have to lock down how they're going to generate threes, how they're going to balance the floor, whose role is what, so that they are constantly creating opportunities. The first thing that I've talked about before in how the Detroit Pistons get back to winning is that they have to improve their transition game, which starts on the defensive end. They have to make sure that they have a dedication to defense. And this is something that we saw from the Orlando Magic, where even though they had far worse shooting, I mean, Jalen Suggs was a revelation in terms of shooting, but we saw Franz Wagner fall off the cliff in terms of shooting, and Paolo Banchero, well, he's kind of like a Cade Cunningham, where he's taking a lot of high difficulty threes many of the time. And even though Wendell Carter could shoot threes, similar to Isaiah Stewart, they never really had the type of team top to bottom, especially when the bench players came in, that you really saw them as a team that could shoot at a high volume on a good efficiency. And yet they still made the playoffs. I think they were number 6 seed, and they were able to be in that first round, even though they lost to the Cavaliers. So it's to say that this you can go really far with the dedication to defense, but I think for this Detroit Pistons team, being dedicated to defense allows them to get out into transition and to make sure that they have the defense on their heels where they have more mismatches. That then gets the defense in rotation when you begin to attack those mismatches, creating wide open threes. And I think this is a primary component of what is going to improve their overall shooting efficiency. Is that as they get out into transition with the Asar Thompson and Jaden Ivey using their freak athleticism, with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart cleaning up the boards, they're going to be able to get those rebounds outlet and then be able to catch the defense reeling, trying to cut off the rim. And then you have Jaden Ivey flash to the corner, which he did many times with Cade Cunningham, and then he's wide open for three, right? Beautiful transition offense. I think this is going to be a staple of theirs. And even when the bench mob comes in, having Marcus Sasser and I almost said Dante DiVincenzo, but having Marcus Sasser and Quentin Grimes as this kind of, a University of Houston dog defenders who are going to get up into you and cause a lot of turnovers, cause a lot of havoc, and get out in transition, you're going to see them be able to have a lot more pull-up threes, a lot more transition threes, and that's going to improve the efficiency as well. Not to mention Simone Fontecchio. When you have a full training camp, and this is the next point that I want to say, is that when you have a full training camp, you're able to scheme better. You're able to create offensive systems that maximize the talent on this team. I think Monty Williams is going to have every incentive to erase the terrible taste in everyone's mouth of last season's losing. I think this next season, I expect them to get to 35 wins, between 30 and 35, but I would weigh closer to 35 wins. You got Cade Cunningham in a contract year, even though they should extend him this offseason. But you'll have Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren playing for that same extension, which means that they're going to be highly motivated this offseason. They're going to be extremely motivated. They're going to be coming into this offseason saying, hey, you know what? We've got to lock down our game so that our team has every incentive to give us the same max extension, which is another reason why I didn't want to go after Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is a low volume, kind of average at best 3-point shooter. If you trade out Jaden Ivey for him and Isaiah Stewart, you're losing shooting and not getting back shooting, which is why I said they would have to go after Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But either way, I would rather stay with the young guys because they increase that window for the foreseeable future. But either way, I expect both of them to have great seasons next year. Jaden Ivey is going to be well versed within his shot package. He will have refined it along with his ball handling and decision making. I expect Jalen Duren to clean up those turnovers, being able to maximize his post up opportunities and cleaning up the glass. I see him averaging somewhere around like 16 and 12. And I think he's going to be far more efficient and effective. Great screen setter, lob threat. He's going to be a beast next year. And so I'm really optimistic on what this team can do next year. Now, what I also foresee, and I mentioned this before in the other video, is that the bench mob is going to be real. When you have a bench mob of Quentin Grimes, Marcus Sasser, Simone Fontecchio, and somebody like a James Wiseman who can be that pick and roll lob threat that can be extremely effective off of somebody like Marcus Sasser and Quentin Grimes, which we actually saw last season, that he does really well in that type of an offensive setup. I think there's going to be an opportunity for this Detroit Pistons to be able to attack you in waves of athleticism, waves of defense, waves of size on the interior, waves of pick and roll and kick out threes and transition offense. And I think it's going to play into a lot of success, especially if they can stay healthy, which, lastly, to be stated, I think was one of the greatest impediments to their efficiency. The fact that they could not stay healthy never allowed them to build any type of a continuity. And so they were always changing up who they were in terms of an identity. In the beginning of the season, they were a defensive focused team, and Asar Thompson was thriving. He looked like a all defensive, all world player. And then all of a sudden, they were trying to get up more threes. And so all of a sudden, Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks were playing more, and Asar was coming off the bench. Right? It was just awkward. It was like, who are they? What are they going to be about from night to night? And then throw in the litany of injuries, whether it was to Bogdanovic starting off the season, Monty Morris never even played last year. You have Cade Cunningham getting injured, Jaden Ivey in different positions for stretches. It was just a crapshoot. It was a crapshoot of a season. And so I'm trying not to judge a team and assess a team by things that are outside of their control, like injuries. But I do expect this team to be a far more efficient 3-point shooting team. I don't think they need to go out and get shooting. And lastly, I've been saying this, I think in the draft, they need to go after Ron Holland, because one of the missing components that they have is an elite wing defender with a high motor who can get them turnovers, who can get into passing lanes, who can get out in transition behind Asar Thompson. Asar is their, if Simone Fontecchio is a dead-eye shooter, Asar Thompson is their lockdown perimeter defender. He is that dude. He is one of the rare few finds that you have in the NBA who you can say, guard that dude, and we will not send a double, and you can hold them to their average or below the average by yourself. You can put them on Kawhi. You can put them on LeBron. You can put them on Paul George. You can put them on KD. You can put them on Anthony Edwards. You can put them on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You can put them on any of these elite players, Luka Doncic, and say, hold your own. And now that he's learning more and more about how to not get caught too close and they can draw fouls on him, he's going to be that much more effective. But it's to say there's nobody behind him. So when he was out for the season with those blood clots, which I believe he's already recovered from, right, there was nobody to fill in. There was nobody. And that's something that they can't go into next season with that type of a hole. I think I'm going to do a video on that later. But it's to say, as always, I want to know what you all think. Get at me in the comment section. Do you agree that they have the shooting that they need already on the roster? Do you think they need to bring somebody in? Get at me in the comment section. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. And I'm out, y'all. Peace.